Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Janan Sarwar, and I would like to welcome you to our live Ramadan special called Our Prosperous Ramadan. I'd like to introduce you to our special guest, Shahriar Rahman. A resident from Queens, New York, he has led a life of service, community activism, and social work, involved with youth outreach programs and mosques over the many years. He founded PALO. PALO stands for the Bangladeshi Humanitarian and Leadership Outreach. It's a nonprofit organization that focuses on humanitarian, charitable, and philanthropic efforts throughout New York City. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for joining our show. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about your background and yourself that I didn't get to?
I'm an immigrant, came here early 90s and grew up around our mosque as our getaway, as immigrant families don't have much growing up. And my father was back and forth going to Bangladesh quite often. We used our mosque as a staple, as a center of our gatherings, our community, our activities. So kind of was raised around the mosque. So from that, we ended up doing a lot of service to the community. It's a small mosque that's been founded 30 years ago or 35 years ago now in Woodside, Queens. It's called Masjid Fatima. So from that masjid, we ended up having a lot of younger children coming to that mosque because we tried to engage them as much as possible. I've been involved for 25 years myself, easily. So that being said, eventually I used to be the volunteer. Now I became the youth leader, and organizing these kids, having a community center there for them, having ping pong tables, pool tables, air hockey tables, and etc. in the back. We try to do that in order to get kids off the streets and into the mosques, not for the sake of here, just be forced religion on you, but for the sake of getting them in a good environment. You're ready to play, whatever, and when the prayer comes, you go pray and come right back to playing, but be in a good environment in general. It was a program that was fruitful. We had to end it due to some space issues and whatever other logistical matters, but alhamdulillah, these are things that we often did for over the past 2 decades, really, to try to have an impact within our community, within the youth, because the kids within our community their parents are usually they have odd jobs and they're not able to give the time or even cater to the kids' needs or whatever they desire to do. So that is what we kind of used to put our efforts into, to give them a space to get away, to, aside from studying and studying for your specialized high schools or your SATs and etc. Come by, have fun, even wrestle. It didn't matter. We had mats for them to wrestle or box until we didn't want to take the risk any further for kids to get too aggressive. But that was the point, that use the mosque as a community center for our youth and keep them in good company. That is one factor of what we do. Aside from that, the last 2 years, we kind of shifted off. When pandemic hit, our group was called Fatima Crew, as it was mostly kids from Masjid Fatima, and it was like 70, 80, 150, I don't know. Generations, 3, 4, 5 generations. When I say generations, I mean high school generations of 4 years. Different batches came, and everybody's part of that, family. And as now some of them are doctors, engineers, whatever it is, that we're making money, we're trying to give back as well, myself included. And when pandemic hit, as people are sitting at home, a good friend of mine, he's from Muslims Giving Back, Mohammed Bahi. He was doing food pantry work still. He was doing a lot of nonprofit work, giving feeding the homeless and etc. So it's not in my nature to sit back and just watch as we're at home. I need to do something as well, and he encouraged me to basically start doing the food pantry work that he was doing as well in Brooklyn. He volunteered to help for that as well, and we started doing our food pantry work. At first, we did 300 or 400 families. I used to sponsor other groups doing it. Eventually, he kind of convinced me to do it ourselves, and we used our office as a warehouse. Really, pallets of food coming in here. We're wearing double masks, gloves, but it was in the peak of the pandemic lockdown that we were distributing food to people, and families were in need, crying as we're delivering food to them. Within our culture, a lot of people are ashamed to even come out to take that food. They're in need, but they're ashamed, or they don't want to show to the public that they're in need. That is one of the problems within our community, within our society. The stigma that getting any kind of benefit is negative. No, you need to provide for your family, and that's first. The rest comes after. So as we did that, we saw that there was a major response from the community, and there was a need. If you know anything about New York City pandemic issues and history, the Bangladesh community was impacted heavily. The Bangladesh Muslim community, or Bangladesh community in general, we had a lot of losses. And mostly these people were odd job workers. They had to go to work. They had to provide for their family. At that time, pandemic unemployment did not come out. We had families who lost their loved ones, who was the main provider in the household. So what we did is that we did not just provide food to these families. We took out checkbooks, and my associates and I, we always just took out checkbooks and just gave it to them, basically. That's not for anybody to know, but it's been 2 years. I'm just telling you this right now. But it was, and you know what? These people were so humble and so strong that they didn't even want to take it. They didn't want to, they were in need, but they didn't want to take it. They lost their husbands. They didn't even know if they have a bank account or not. We were trying to give them basic money, but they wouldn't take it. So there was many situations like that. Sometimes we'd be out of food and people would be standing outside, and we would write out checks to them just because, alhamdulillah, we were okay and we were able to do so. So, and that could not go on any longer as Fatima Crew, because we've had such an impact within the community here. So we started Bhalo. Because Fatima Crew is very much relevant to my Woodside community, my mosque community, and people that knew about it. But Bhalo was created basically from our team of volunteers. We were thinking of names to have, to something meaningful to have. Bhalo in Bengali means good, but at the same time, it's an abbreviation for Bangladesh Humanitarian Aid and Leadership Outreach. So what we try to do further is kind of engage local politicians, try to engage local leaders, and bring out our youth, to expose them, to give them the exposure to what could be their roles next. That, listen, yes, we are minorities now. We are in the lower income brackets or whatever else it is, but your potential is to the next level, and don't shun yourself from that, and you should aspire for greater. Hopefully we can actually have that impact, and I believe we are, but again, time will tell. We don't know anything as of yet.
That's very impressive. I have so many questions and so many thoughts, but first of all, I love the acronym as well as the meaning good. And Ramadan, as we're in now, is all about amplifying our good deeds. And, what you've expressed and what you did with what you were able to do with structures in place. And then sometimes when you had the structures in place and you ran out of food, for example, just that giving nature, that's really inspiring to others. And what I want to ask is, do you have any advice about community service work that Muslims can be involved in other places, maybe where food scarcity, or now that the pandemic is ending, is not maybe as big of an issue? What advice do you have?
Honestly, within the South Asian community, even though pandemic might be ending, food scarcity is still a major threat, because again, we are reluctant to go out and get the help that we need. Our Because I was shocked as we served the food. There was lines that were 4 or 5 blocks long. Honestly speaking, you're not from Queens, so I would describe the blocks that was filled till, but you wouldn't understand that. But it was blocks of people just standing. And think about it, they know that people are there and people are seeing them, their neighbors are seeing them, but how desperate were they that they actually needed it? And they stood there. And my one of my advice to our team is that do not record. If we record, we try to record from the back going forward, or do not focus in on people that are coming to get the help, because we're not trying to embarrass anybody. We're not trying to shine light on their needs, except for the fact that there is a need there, but not expose them. So we try our best to avoid or blur out images of the people, but sometimes we do need to have footages documented for our sake as well. So it is there, but not to that extent. But that is one of the issues that we have. But it's not just that. COVID had a long effect on people's mental health. If we didn't do this nonprofit work that we did every weekend, going out there every day, preparing, sourcing the food, buying it from wholesalers to make sure we can maximize our output and giving the donations and boxes to people. Without that, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know basically how to approach everything, right? So, in terms of other people, people are stuck at home. We had a place, an outlet to basically use to to do the work that we did, and it was more for us than it was for them. That's the truth. That being able to make that, being able to provide and have that impact on people, satisfied our own mental health more than it satisfied anybody's hunger outside. That's my belief. He's the witness, but that's our belief, that it helped us more than anything else. As New Yorkers being locked down, and I'm not somebody to be locked in for too long. So look for ways to go out and do something. And we try to make it productive. So my friends that I've known for 15, 20 years, Fatima crew members, so all combined together, we came together and we fit about 10, 15 of us every night, weekends, after Tarweeh, after Isha, came over here, or after Maghrib, just came over here after breaking fast, or we even broke fast here. We broke fast in this office, and then we had a suhoor here, and then we left. So we were packing this whole time. If you go to our Facebook page, I think you will be able to see the videos of us, some of the work that we did in during the lockdown itself.
That is amazing. You know, something that you've said a few times in different ways is this concept of community, connection, human connection, that was, taken away, especially during the lockdown times, the isolation that people faced, and the importance of coming together as a community. I really loved what you said as well about what you used to do with the youth. And, inshallah, you guys can get together and make some more programs for the youth. I wanted to ask you what you think the major issues facing the Muslim youth now are, and what other steps, other than, you made some great recommendations earlier, but what recommendations do you have to help overcome these issues for the Muslim youth today?
Sadly, last 2 years, as the lockdown took place, we minimized our exposure with most of the youth that I used to be exposed to. Again, Omicron, as we were just settling down, Delta came, and then Omicron came. So as those twists came at us, we were not able to get back to our old flow of knowing what the changes are. But again, I do know there's usage of drugs, not even just conventional drugs. Now they've become innovative. Those issues, along with even just being stagnant and not productive, that is there within the community. I cannot say what is there overall right now specifically, but in Jamaica, Queens, I hear about a lot of drug abuse, and sadly, again, it's not the conventional drugs that we knew growing up. It's something more innovative now and deadly. So a lot of deaths that are taking place here, but I think more than anything, it's just an outlet, and that's why we need to focus on more recreation, more programs for kids, not for them to come in and be scolded by an elderly, but for them to be interacted with, for them to have a place where they can interact with their own age people, and kind of, they build each other. So just like my mosque and my group of youth that I used to be around, reminding them to do certain things used to put me in line as well. So I think that there's a focus that needs to be put there, and we need to start getting city and state resources to put focus into our new generation of kids. That if you're just forcing them to study, 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 it's not all it is. You have to give them that sense of community. Otherwise, what happens is that you become very much book smart, but you're an idiot on the streets. And I'm saying it bluntly, that you can be, when you go onto the workforce, if you don't know how to socialize, you don't know how to actually interact and kind of grow with the people that you're working with, then it's pointless for you to be that book smart. So it's not just book smarts that matters. It's about you being an individual and how you carry yourself to the next level. That's what defines you. And we hope that everybody around us they're trying to develop to be a better person. And they hope, I hope personally, that they grow to be better human beings who likes to give back as much as we like to give back.
Absolutely, inshallah. And, having people that are kind of almost like mentors, like you, your generation, the people that you've mentioned, your friends you grew up with, having that be almost kind of the stepping stone between what you were saying earlier, mentioning that sometimes there's a huge divide or a gap between youth and then the elders, and having more people that are giving back, that are interacting, and even from a career perspective or from the whole self perspective, being inspirations for the youth, that you don't have to think that Islam is something that you do when you're older. You're living Islam, and it sounds like a lot of your friends are too. And it is so important in Islam as well that we are a component of who we hang around. So being around good company is very, very important. Now, this makes me want to ask you, what does being Muslim in America mean for you, and how have you shaped your career keeping that in mind?
Hey, that's a big question. What does being Muslim in America mean for me? Well, keep in mind, I was in high school when 20 years ago, when an attack took place in America, right? So at that time, we went from being in high school, warm-blooded and etc. Like literally, it was like I was a first-class citizen in America till all of a sudden, wait, maybe a second class, and then understanding more as you analyze things, you're like, nah, you're not even a second class. You're a third-class citizen. You got to make sure you're proper. You have to make sure you represent your community, you represent your religion, and you represent your family properly. Otherwise, there's an impact where somebody can come have a hate crime on your father. Somebody can come have a hate crime on your hijabi mother. So being Muslim in America now means that we really have to strive to achieve more not for the sake of individual achievements, but as a combined group effort. And I believe we have done so, and we are doing so. I believe as our friends have now gone through the phases where we interact with different people, your colleagues, for example, or even our staff in the office right now, they understand what Ramadan is, or Muslims doing something, but it's not anything bad. And then they see us also doing the nonprofit work we do. Aside from that, I mean, what else can there be for Muslims in America? This is our place. There's a lot of leaders that will tell you that, oh, don't get involved here. This is not our country. You gotta get involved. You can't cry afterwards when something goes wrong and you don't have somebody come stand for you. You need to have the proper network, and we have enough population, we have enough density of people within New York City or even America in general, that if we make our voices heard, it should help us, because we've seen how bad it is in the past. We cannot repeat that. And you never know when we're going to be thrown a curveball. So for that, we should prepare to basically have a better connection with our community leaders, politicians, police, and etc. So that, God forbid, anything ever comes out again, our families, our people are not misunderstood. That the actions of somebody somewhere else does not represent our feelings or our beliefs in any way. And I think that is the way we've been functioning for the last 20 years, honestly.
I agree. I agree. You answered that very beautifully. I think that's a great recap of what it means to be here, to we are here. We're proud of our loving, kind religion that spreads peace and tries to build community, not just among Muslims themselves, but as a part of the greater society. And I see that all the work you're doing impacts that as well.
Trying to.
So inshallah, you'll continue to do this. Just to end this conversation off, we've been asking everyone a lighter note question related to any personal traditions that you're practicing during this holy month of Ramadan with your family, or anything else you'd like to share.
For 20 plus years, my tradition has been to go to our local mosque, and we serve food to about 150 people daily. So the kids, instead of having the adults take care of it, the youth go, and we serve to all the adults, and we serve them refills, and then we clean up also after them. And then after that, we eventually 15, 20 of us sit down and we eat ourselves. And that's been a tradition and brotherhood that was built amongst my mosque youth and my peers, actually. And that's a tradition that I really miss because of COVID. But inshallah, hopefully we'll get back to that soon.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Inshallah, I want to do that in our local masjids as things open up as well. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today for this interview. Really appreciate it. And for all of you all listening, we wish you a thriving and prosperous Ramadan. And inshallah, we'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.